Let's get into it, Mark. When you think about it, you and I recorded that basically after the first season was done. We did it last summer, right? So over a year has transpired since then. And all of this stuff has come up since then that I've been talking about, right? I'm talking about the fake text messages. I'm talking about the acid attack. I'm talking about all this other stuff. So let's start with, it's the most unthinkable thing to think about, that someone you were married to for 22 years that could do this to you, the affairs, the lies to everyone in your lives that you had to live with, and now the thought that you haven't seen your kids in 18 months. I've gone from telling my story to wanting to help you fight to get your kids back and to tell your story. So on July 4th or 5th of last year, of 2024, you and the daughter formerly known as Madison went to Sacramento to buy a dog, right? Is that right?
Right. Rachel had taken our Frenchie, and I had a friend that was looking to rehome one of her own, and so we drove up there the day after 4th of July, so it was the 5th.
Yeah. You were in a knee scooter at that point. You had broken your ankle a month before as well. Is that right?
Right. So I was a little handicapped at the time.
Yeah. So I have the police report, and I want to read a couple things. Mark, really, for the benefit of everyone that's following, and for you, I want to run through this and tell people what happened. While you were in Sacramento, Rachel called the Atascadero police because she was at the Rite Aid, and she claimed that you had poured acid on the handle of her door, and she got a chemical burn.
Right. So while I was in Sacramento, I actually got a call from my attorney asking me where I was, and I said I'm up north. We're picking up a dog. It was about 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And she said, okay, because Rachel just claimed that you put acid on her hand at the pharmacy. And I said, well, it wasn't me. I'm up here, so I don't know how I can be in two places at once. What I thought was interesting, though, was that Rachel doesn't even use the Rite Aid pharmacy. She uses Walgreens. I use the Rite Aid pharmacy, so why was she there?
I don't know. And this, by the way, this happened. I have the police report in front of me. The call was placed at 1800, 6 o'clock on the 5th of July, and you were 3.5 hours north, right?
Right.
So I want to talk about what the police said, because this report is really damning, and then I want to share a little something with those of you that are listening, especially those of you that are in SLO. The police report. What Rachel did when she called was she refused medical attention, and she refused a unit to come out. I want you to think about that for a minute. This is a woman who called the police every time she got a fake text message from Mark. Yeah. She went to the police on me twice to report things that I was showing on the Instagram account. This is the most, she's got as I said this morning in that video, she's got law enforcement on speed dial. Like, she doesn't give a shit. She will pick up that phone and dial 911 in a second. So what surprises me, I'm sure it surprises you, refuses to get medical treatment and refuses a unit to go out. Does this surprise you at all?
Well, I think she was looking at that particular incident as a freebie. Like, I'll just make a police report, I'll call it in, and we'll call it good. And I'll just keep racking up these false police reports, and eventually something will happen.
She was building her case against you, right? So
Correct.
Let me read from the second page of the police report for everyone that is in SLO County. This is really important. I got an issue here with Dan Dow, your district attorney, a guy who I have tremendous respect for. The officer said, unable to substantiate a crime, let alone a restraining order violation. The RP was provided an event number. The RP is the reporting person. The police are saying, listen, not only do we not know that there's a crime that's been committed, but we can't substantiate a violation of the restraining order. Mark's, it's not listed here. I knew, it's funny because you texted me. You and I were in touch at this time. And you said, I just got a call from her. You told me the story on the phone. I'm like, holy shit, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
She is reporting that you did this to her. She had no idea you were hours away. It was a physical impossibility. And for Mark, for you, and for those of you in San Luis Obispo, a part of the case against Mark, when I'm screaming about why this nonsense is still going on with the district attorney, I point to this. The district attorney built a case that references, in part, this incident at Rite Aid. So sorry. You got to ask yourselves what the district attorney there is doing. What's the guy's name who's prosecuting you? Stanton? Stanton, is that his name?
Yeah.
I met him at your hearing. I introduced myself. I said, listen, what are you doing? You're going after Mark with all this, the fake text messages. He said, well, there's more. I said, well, how about the fact that she wiped her iCloud account out, obstructing justice? And at that point, he said, I'm going to have to direct you to Dan Dow. It was nice to meet you, and he'll treat you as a member of the media because of your podcast, and there's a whole bunch of bullshit, right? Like, you look at the pleading, the case against Mark references the acid attack that you're hearing about. How egregious is that? So, I mean, listen, you can't answer this question, but why would the district attorney be building a case on something that the Atascadero Police Department told them in their report that they couldn't substantiate it was a violation of the restraining order or even that a crime was committed? This was nonsense.
I think it's a classic case of let's throw crap against the wall to see what we can get stick.
I've never been connected to a case, certainly a case like this. And to look at this case that's being built against you, even still with the text messages, even after everything we've done, I think we're going to talk about this in a minute, what's going to happen in a week, because I'm coming to testify. And the cop that found out that these messages from Rachel were sent by her is going to testify, and it's not going to go well for Rachel. You just got to wonder what they're all thinking about, and hearing that you say it's just a matter of seeing what they can put up against the wall and seeing what sticks is disgusting. Like, I never had any experience enough to say, well, the system just sucks. But
I'm giving you firsthand experience right now.
the system.
It's really the way it is. I mean, it's a numbers game with them. We'll throw as many charges as we can. And we'll see what we can get to stick. And then if they want to fight it, then they'll let you fight it. But more and more, it's a numbers game. They're just looking for convictions. They don't really care if it's right or wrong. That's the sense I get.
I'm going to read a couple of comments, Mark, and then I want to talk about the text messages as well. You're getting a lot of support here. There's a woman named May who follows us. She had a guy on that it was invited on yesterday, whose name is Kent, who's got an incredibly powerful story. If you can imagine a worse version of your story, we had a guy came on yesterday whose wife was threatening to kill him and their kids. And it's when I thought about it, I'm like, oh, Mark's got a shitty story, but this guy's got a shitty story, right? Like
Everyone's trying to one up each other.
Yeah, but you know what? This guy Kenny is someone, we may have him pop in here, but he's got an unbelievable story. But what he did after all this, after he recovered, was he started his own group. And their perspective, his perspective, what he has done with his group, with people that have survived and have recovered from narcissistic relationships, is unreal. His perspective is better than any therapist I've heard. And he's a regular guy, and he's been through the most unreal trauma. And my hope for you is that you can turn around and do a TED Talk, right? Do something, be part of some support group and go, this is what happened. But we have to, my feeling for not just for those that are in different parts of the country, but for those in San Luis Obispo, need to rally around Mark and need to take a stand. The DA, what they're doing with Mark is just insane. Let's do this. Let's talk about the text messages again for those of you that are watching that are came from Instagram or are new to the story. There's a part of this story with Mark and Rachel when Rachel began to build her case against Mark, where she started to receive text messages, threatening text messages, and those messages were messages that were like, I'm gonna end your life. I'm gonna do all the. I mean, they're horrendous. I'll read. I can read a couple of them for you. But those messages, when she filed her restraining order against Mark, they were used in the domestic violence restraining order. And what the Paso Robles Police Department found out, I was thinking they found this out in the fall, Mark. That report, that supplemental report 9, which I'll share with everyone once we're off, was done in March. So let me read a couple of things to those of you that are listening to help you to understand this. But Rachel claimed with family court and with the Paso Robles Police Department, which led to Mark's arrest, that she was being harassed by Mark. As an example, on June 20th of 2024, so 14 months ago, Rachel shows the Paso Robles Police Department her phone, and there's a message that shows up that says, "You sure look pretty in that blue shirt. I'm watching your every move. You can't have someone with you every moment of every day. Time is almost up for you. If I can't have you, no one will. I promised you that, remember?" So with that message, there were other messages that were allegedly sent to Rachel. When the Paso Robles Police Department began investigating this, and around March, so just a handful of months ago, Paso Robles PD ordered a report from a company called the Pinger Corporation. They own an app called Text Free. It allows you to send texts, a burner app on your phone. It's free. Anyone can get it. Well, when Paso Robles PD pulled that report, they discovered Rachel had signed up for the Text Free app, and there were messages there. So they subpoenaed the records. In those records, I'm going to read this to you so I don't screw this up, so I get it right.
I should also point out that she signed up for that app back in 2016.
Why would your wife, like, here we go, man to man. If I'm just your buddy and we haven't both been run through the ringer by the same woman, why would your wife need a burner phone?
Well, she was obviously running covert operations for the CIA, and I'm sure it was necessary.
Mm-hmm. She's had that number, as Mark said, since 2016. That's in the police records, by the way. That's going to come up in court. Your hearing, by the way, is next Tuesday, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Tuesday.
Yes, yes.
So let me read something else for those of you that are listening. So I read you the text message that was sent at 6:52 p.m. The next message that was sent on June 20th at 18:53, a minute later, says test. And then at 18:53, the same moment, 25 seconds after the word test, another message comes through to Rachel's phone. It's the same message. And then A minute later, at 18:55, the test came through again. So she sent herself that message 1, 2, 3, 4 times with the word test in between. That's what the police found. So all of this information, by the way, if you're rubbing your head, all this information from this police report is with the district attorney. And the case against Mark is predicated in part based on those messages, based on the acid attack. So when people start screaming at me like you're just a scorned lover, you're this, you're that, I'm done telling my story. Like, I'll tell my story to those that want to know my story, but I'm here to advocate now for Mark. We need to get his kids back for him. I want to read the rest of the police report. Here's what it says below those messages. By the way, this was written by Detective Steve Boyette at the Paso Robles Police Department. What it says, from Pinger customer information, I learned the following. The name listed on the account as iPhone, the IP address account creation is, and then he gives the IP address. The third-party email address associated with the account is, and he gives Rachel's email address. But Pinger states the email address was not verified. I want to talk about that in a minute. Mark, we're going to talk about that because that's an issue right now. The Pinger username for the other one is a username that was actually your eldest daughter, an address she never had. It's like almost as if Rachel wanted to set the daughter formerly known as Madison up, because at that point she had already sided. This, by the way, that account, which was allegedly set up by the daughter formerly known as Madison, was assigned on August 1st, 2024. By the way, you and I were in court. I was testifying on your behalf in the family court on the 26th. 6 days later, that account is set up, and Rachel starts sending herself more text messages. Do you want to know what my theory is, Mark, on that, by the way, why it was set up at that point in time?
Do tell.
I think because the family court, Judge Duffy in Paso Robles, she basically awarded Rachel an extension of the restraining order for a year. So Mark couldn't see his kids for a year from then. It's now been a year and a half or longer. Rachel saw that all of the evidence she put forth was approved.
Yeah.
So what did she do? She started sending herself more texts and doing more things. And then, this is the piece de resistance. When you talk about setting someone up, she had the judge in her back pocket at that point. Listen, court was ugly. You and Rachel, you were both toxic. There was a lot of stuff that went on, and we could talk about that. I'm not here to bust your chops. I'm here to just talk about this, but court was ugly. And she got the judge in her back pocket. I think she set the second group of messages up so that she could then go across the street to the Paso PD and then file the report against you and say, look at what was just accepted as evidence in my family court case, and look at what I'm continuing to get. Even though I was awarded a year extension on the restraining order, he's still texting me. He's still threatening my life. That's my theory. Discuss.
I mean, it's likely, because once she got through the initial set of court hearings and felt like she was winning, she probably used that to bolster her position and felt like it was fortified and decided to move forward with even more damning evidence.
A month after that, you got arrested.
Right. Yep.
And they arrested you. This was not like, hey, we're going to knock on his door and arrest him.
Right.
Do you mind if I...
Go ahead. Please, propound.
Mark was driving down the road and got pulled over in what they call a felony stop, or you were like pulling out a Jiffy Lube, and they surround your vehicle. and they pull you out like a felony stop at gunpoint.
With a helicopter.
No way. Really? A helicopter?
Yeah, there's a helicopter there.
Oh, my God.
That's what I said to the police. I said, this is all for me? For what?
Unbelievable. Based on all this evidence that Rachel fabricated. You sent Rachel a message. Let's just deal with this for a second. You found out that daughter number 2 wasn't yours. And then you started to think there could be fathers of other kids. So you sent her a message. You sent her a message that I think almost anyone would send their wife that was married for 22 years. You sent a message that said, if I find out one more of these kids is not mine, or any one of these 3 or whatever it was, I'm going to spend my life making your life hell. Right? I mean, you can tell me what it was, but something like that, right?
I will spend the rest of my life doing whatever I can to destroy your life the way you've done mine.
Yeah. You called me, for those that are new to this, you reached out to me in March of 2024, and you sent me this recording that you made of Rachel, you and Rachel in the RV. Mm-hmm. And you asked me, I think at that point, what do you know about my second daughter? And I thought, boy, that's odd. And for those of you that are new, Rachel, when she and I reconnected in 2012, when she told me she was no longer with Mark, she told me that she had an SA happen to her, and this child was a product of that. So I said to Mark, I know that she's a product of an attack. I knew that from 2012. And you said to me, and this is one of those things in these moments when people say, what were the surprises? What are the surprises? The surprise was getting a phone call from you saying, what do you know about my daughter number 2? And what I knew wasn't true. You said, part of that information is true, number 1, but I know who the father is, number 2, and number 3, you were just finding it out. 17 years you raised this girl. How did you find out? That did she tell you? What is that on the recording that I have? Tell me.
No, it's not. So from the time that I had sent you that recording, I had been reaching out, trying to get in touch with Mike Cherry. And he finally, on April 11th, gave me a call, and we had a nice conversation. He was, really apologetic about everything.
I want to stop you for 1 second. Mike Cherry is the guy Rachel had an affair with while she was married to Mark in 2016 and faked pregnancy. He was on an episode of the podcast this season. Rachel said that she was having twins with him and did the same thing minus cancer.
I had learned about Mike Cherry back in March, and when he finally got a hold of me was on the 11th of April. And like I said, we had a conversation. He was, super apologetic, and I was about ready to hang up with him, and before I did, he said, there's something I need to tell you that you should probably know, and that is that she told me back in 2015 that your second daughter was not your biological daughter. And I was floored. I nothing like that had ever even creeped up in the back of my mind with regard to my girls. And so I think I got off the phone with him, and I just kind of went ballistic. I mean, I went around the house gathering up all my photographs with Rachel. I threw them in a trash pile in the garage. Like, at that point, I was done. I was just so livid. And she came home that night with the girls. I guess they were out at Russ's house, or yeah, I think she took them over to Russ's, and she said, because at the time I'm still hooked up to an IV, just got home from the hospital, and I was living on the sofa in the living room, and she just came by and said, "Is there anything you need before I go to bed?" And I said, "There's not a fucking thing I ever need from you again." And those were the last words I ever had with her.
So the recording, so I know this, by the way, for those of you listening.
Recording is like 2 weeks before that.
Okay. So for those of you that are listening, the last episode, what I believe, unless she goes to jail, which will be season 3 jail, the last episode of this podcast is going to be a recording that Mark made of a conversation with Rachel 2 weeks before that. By the way, when she asked you that, it must have been around the time she went and got the restraining order. Just saying.
I want to say she probably got the restraining order the very next morning.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I went through and like I said, I took every picture, photo album, anything that the two of us had ever taken together, and I threw them all in a big trash heap in the garage. And so I think at that point when she saw that, she was like, "Uh-oh, the jig is up."
But what, at some point she had to figure that people were going to figure it out. She had to know you and I had been in touch. She didn't know what the information share was. The women at the airport.
Yeah, she might have been, thinking that, but that was definitive proof because on my way out to Orange County the next day, I sent her that nasty text message, and I just basically said, if I find out that either one of these two girls are not my biological children, I will spend the rest of my life making your life as miserable as you have made mine.
She never counted on you and I connecting in the way that we've connected.
No,
right?
Not at all. Not at all.
By the way, for those of you listening, this is Mark. This is Rachel's still husband. I see some new people here. If you have the easiest way to get the podcast is just to Google the Rachel Cancer Scam. Go on the platform you want. If you have an Alexa device, you can say, "Hey, Alexa, play and I've got that device right next to me, so I can't say her name, but you can just say, "Hey, so and so, play season 1, episode 1 of the Rachel Cancer Scam." You'll get there. Let's get back to daughter number 2 for a minute. So you called me, we talked about it, and you were livid. I don't blame you for the hurt and anger you must have felt. I don't think anyone anywhere would, regardless of the rest of the story, to find out 17 years after the fact. And by the way, when I made a video about this, I said, "Rachel, it's time to tell your daughter that she's not Mark's." And I Mark for a year. You know this. My friend Matt, people are saying, "Don't do it. Don't keep that. That's not yours to share." And then eventually I said, it's going to come out. It's going to be in the court case. I think what you were going to do is you were going to ask for a DNA test. And that's when I said, "You know what? I'm making a video." So I make a video, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls that are following me. And I say, "Daughter number 2, Mark is not your father. Ask your mom to tell the truth." And, my smarmy, sarcastic asshole way, I do that. Well, I get a message from someone who knows somebody it's like Better Call Saul. I got a guy who knows a guy, and that guy knows a guy, and that guy knows that daughter number 2 was told by Rachel that she's a victim of SA. So I'm like, I have to do another video. Like, I feel compelled, like I'm in a pissing contest with Rachel to get her to listen, if you're going to not tell me the truth, that's fine. But your daughter's going to know that I know who her father is. And that's what I did. I made another video and I said, Rachel told daughter number 2 that she's a victim. Daughter number 2, I have your real father's name. I have his address. I have his phone number. And if you want to talk to him, you can find me. And maybe I was being an asshole, but I felt like she's how many lives does she have to ruin? Like, at some point you got to stand up and go, cut the shit. I'm getting in the middle of this. This isn't listen, this is no longer the Rachel cancer scam. This is Mark and Rachel and Russ and the daughters and what she's done to your mother and your brother and your family, which I never talk about, and what she's done to her own family. Sherry telling me that Sherry was deceased. Like, that's what this is at this point. By the way, I'm making this what you are all here for tonight. This is going to be episode 21. I'm saving this. I'm cutting this up. This is going to be the next episode. When I'm back from break in the podcast, you're all the audience. I haven't done a podcast with an audience. I haven't done a video podcast. Tonight, you're all part of a live studio audience here on TikTok. Kent Allen, that's Kenny, who was here yesterday. I'll just give you one comment, Mark, who is the survivor of this unreal narcissist in his life, said you were the only real parent to your children, blood or no blood. Ain't that the truth? So, you sent me a tape of you in the RV at some point while all this was going on, while you had found out about me and about Russ. You pulled the RV that you guys have together into the driveway, and you lived in the RV while she and the girls lived in the house, so that you were nearby, but you weren't you didn't have to sleep in the bed with the devil. And
No, I had not been sleeping with the devil for quite some time.
yeah, so you had a conversation with Rachel one night, which led to the recording. Why don't you share that with everyone while I get another drink? Mark, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark.
Oh, thank you. So, the night before the recording, I had a long conversation with Rachel. We had been going through the precursor to divorce, discussing what we were going to divvy up and how we were going to separate things and who was going to live where and which kid was going to live with who. And towards the end of that conversation, Rachel got really upset and then decided to throw herself on the floor. And it was pretty shocking to see that because I'd never experienced what I just witnessed. And I felt like she was possessed by the devil because that's kind of what it looked like. Like her body was just thrown to the floor. And it really freaked me out. And so I had a conversation with my brother the next day, and he advised me, make sure that you record any conversations that you have with her moving forward, because it sounds like she is trying to make it look like you are abusing her, and that's why she would have thrown herself on the floor. And so from that day forward, any conversation that I had with her, I made sure to have my iPhone nearby, and so I would just record any interaction just to kind of cover my butt. And so the next day, she came out to the RV, and I think this particular night I was feeling really sick. But we ended up talking for about an hour, and I recorded the entire conversation. And then, can't remember how many days it was, Harry, until I sent that recording to you.
You sent it to me like a couple days later. Like
it was a
2
couple
days
days?
later. Yeah, a couple days.
Yeah, because she was talking about taking the girls to Cancun for spring break, and asked me if I wanted to go, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go. So I ended up sending them to Cancun.
On your dime, by the way. She flew with benefits, but your dime, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was paid for by me, but anyway, I mean, so they went to Cancun, and I went to the hospital.
Unbelievable.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So this tape, for those of you that are going to get to hear it, on the last episode, hopefully the last episode
Oh.
of this podcast,
I thought you were
is
going to do it tonight.
no, I'm not going to play it tonight. It's an hour long. I'm saying it's going to be the last episode of the podcast. I can't keep doing this for the rest of my life, unless she goes to jail, like season 3 jail. As I keep joking, but what is on this tape are things that are exceptionally damning, including her admission of why she cheats, why she does what she does. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. But at one point, you question her about Mike Cherry. I don't know who that is. You know, everyone's heard me talk about this. And when, you know, this is another thing. Do you know that I listened to the first few minutes of that and then I put it away for a year? You sent it to me like maybe beginning of April, like maybe April 1st or April 2nd or something like that, a couple days after recording it.
Yeah.
I listened to a few minutes of it. And then I put it away. And I didn't listen to it until March of this year. It was so painful for me after what I had been through. Like, I thought that my healing in this was done. I thought, like, I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm good. I'm over this nonsense, this bullshit. And then hearing her voice and hearing her talk about that, or hearing her talk about me, because I think there's conversation about me on that tape.
Well, there was. I mean, at the time, you and I were kind of at odds with each other. And not so much that we were like enemies, but that I think both of us were being misled to believe certain things from her. And so she was kind of playing us both against the middle.
I felt like, you know, the only reason I stayed after she was caught, after that phone call you made, was because there were parts of my story, according to her, that were true. Like she was being held prisoner, like she was an abused spouse, and women like me don't get out alive. And I thought, boy, I wonder if Mark really is that guy, because you and I had that conversation that day, and everything seemed. When I heard your voice the first time, I was blown away. I didn't know what to expect. I'd known of you since 2012 or before, and I thought you were an abuser. I was out for blood 10 years before that with you, and when I heard how calm you are, and how and the kind of guy that you are, it completely threw me off base. I was off. It was like, wait a minute, the world is off its axis. Like with this, like when you called me and I jumped down your throat. And you were like, hold on, I'm not looking for any trouble. And you were like, let me send you a tape. Let me send you something. And you sent me that tape of Rachel coming in the door through the Ring camera the night before, and I thought she was in the hospital,
right,
dying, 66 pounds, paralyzed, and there she is walking in the front door with flowers from Russ. Like,
right.
Come on, cut the shit. Like, am I being punked right now? And then from that point, you and I start exchanging all these text messages with pictures. Like, here's Rachel, here are the rings, here is the ultrasound, here's the urn with the Never Baby's ashes in it.
Yeah.
I didn't bring a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, so we start doing that with each other. I found, and this just pisses me off, just for the purposes of discussion for those listening, there are a lot of things where there was crossover between Mark and I. Mark and Rachel were away. She was like inviting me on a trip. Like, you guys were on a trip to Oklahoma before I saw her in August of 21. You remember that?
I do.
She texted me from that trip. That's when we set up the trip to see each other in Santa Barbara on August 27th. She said, I took my daughter to Oklahoma. But she was with you, and then I met her in Santa Barbara on August 27th. The prior week was her birthday. You and Rachel were down the road from where I'm sitting right now here in Vegas.
Yep.
So she's talking to me while she's in Oklahoma with you, making arrangements. Then she gets home, she comes with you to Vegas, and then we're planning for me to go to Santa Barbara to meet her on the 27th. It's like she's so sick and so calculated what she did. She sent me a message later in 2021, a month later, September. You guys remember going to the Dave Matthews concert in in Irvine.
Every year.
Right. She sent me a picture from the bathroom of her, like, after a couple glasses of wine, saying, having fun at Dave Matthews. I had fun with you in October. I'm here with a guy, but it's just a friend from work. And then, like, I look at it now. That's one of those things I look at and go, son of a bitch. You're out with him and you're texting me pictures. There's a picture that you sent me. I can't put it up now because it's not redacted. That same night, she posted a picture with my man at the Dave Matthews concert in Irvine, celebrating our love and our love of Dave.
Yeah.
And I just, like, those things. And then the other thing that Mark did is he sent me this grip, for lack of a better word, of text messages, 2.5 years of text messages between you and Rachel.
Oh, I thought I sent all of them to you.
No, I got 2.5 years. It's enough. No, fucking thank you.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Mark sends me 2.5 years of text messages. So part of me, and I have this friend who's got this brain and this ability to take things like that and then put them all together, and offered to put them all together and go, okay, we have messages starting on this date. We have messages ending on this date. Harry, give me access to your phone. Do the same thing with iMessage. I'm going to put them together. And you can look through and see, like, when she was telling you that she was having surgery or that she was doing this or she was doing that. One of them, I'll give you one example, is that you and Rachel went on an anniversary trip. May 5th is the day that she had her brain surgery where she lost all of her memory. And like a night or two before that was the night she went out with a bunch of people from work, and she had alleged that a man at work had roofied her and committed an SA. And then the 6th and the 7th, she texted one of the girls we know at work, and she said she was attacked and she's at the hospital. Mark, the day she texted her girlfriend at work and said, I'm in the hospital because of this SA, the two of you were on your trip.
She's a very calculated individual. I don't know what else to say.
Listen, here's what's important to say. You have a new woman in your life.
I do. I'm holding her hand right now.
I'm sure she's looking at you, squeezing your hand, going, next time I see Harry, I'm going to knee him right in the nuts for doing this to you. I'm going to just knee him right in the nuts.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I'm going to let you go in a minute.
She's blowing you right now.
Yeah, she's ready to kill me. By the way, can I tell the story about Court? If she promises, she's got to promise not to knee me in the nuts. So we are in court, all of us. This was the day that I saw Rachel. This was on the 5th of August. It is an important day. By the way, as we're going into the courtroom, I'm all excited. I did a little video like I'm Geraldo reporting outside the courtroom, ready to go in. And
I was going to say, it was very Geraldo-esque.
Yeah. So I did a report from outside the courtroom, and then I said, I'll report back to you. Bulletins as they become available. And sure enough, we go downstairs, and as we're walking into the courtroom, walking down the hall towards us are Russ and Rachel. I'd never seen Russ in person. You had the pleasure of seeing him in person. He said sarcastically, and they're walking down the hall. They're walking down the hall, and I make eye contact with Russ, and I'm like, oh, it's you. But then I look down, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I look down at Rachel, and I am staring into the eyes of the devil. I swear to God, like when I was looking at her. Lena, who's my girlfriend, for those of you that are here, I have a girlfriend too. Mark's not the only one. When I told Lena this story, she said, and she's always got a million questions. She's like, "Oh my God, what do you think she was thinking?" what were you thinking? What happened? What happened? I'm like, I don't know. I need to digest it. I just wanted to let you know that this happened. On the tape that you made with Rachel, the two of you are talking at the beginning, and she is in full boo-hoo mode.
Oh yeah.
She is like, nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. You should take the girls. She does this whole thing. And you, by the way, folks, this is March. This is the end of March. This is right the night after she threw herself, or 2 nights after she threw herself on the floor in front of him. She is doing this with you, and you said to her, everyone's going to hear this. You said, Rachel, we all love you. Nobody hates you. You can win the girls back in your favor. There's nothing here that can't be fixed. Your family, Sherry loves you. Your nieces love you. My family, you know what I mean? Like, you were saying to her, this is heartbreaking for me. You were saying to her, we can fix this. It's not too broken. Mark, 10 affairs, guys with fake pregnancy and cancer, and she was married to Brian for 3 of your years of marriage, and there you are saying, we can fix this. We can fix it. And
Well, in that moment, though, I'm also thinking about my girls. I'm thinking about how it's going to affect them. You know, I did not want to disrupt their lives. I didn't, you know, I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that they never had to go through what I did as a child of divorce. And I think for those reasons is why I was willing to do, you know, whatever I could to try and smooth things over, or at least bring it to light so that it could be dealt with. But she buries everything. And she's just always going to be a toxic person because she buries everything and doesn't admit to anything. And that's disappointing, but that's not something I can fix.
yeah.
You know, we went through therapy, and I offered to send her to rehab, and you know, I was willing to do whatever I could to try and get her mind right. But you can't fix somebody's mind unless they're willing or amendable to trying to work on it themselves. And she's just not that person. She's never going to change.
The narcissist is not that person, right? The point in this with Rachel saying to you, nobody loves me, everyone hates me, and you saying, let's try to fix this for the sake of the kids. Narcissists don't ever get help. We know that. They just don't. You can't study them because they'll never talk.
Right.
She's essentially, after that, she's begging you to stay. She's telling you, take the girls. She's just like grasping. And then that tape is made on the 30th of March. On the 13th of April, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on the 13th of April, Rachel turned around and went to Atascadero PD or family court or wherever she went, and she got a restraining order saying Mark was abusive. And that's when she was building this case on you the entire time.
Right.
That's the sickening thing in this all. She's begging you to reconsider. You told her, by the way, in fairness, at one point you found out she was still seeing Russ, and you said you were done. Fuck it, I'm done. And then she went and got the restraining order. Then she said, Plan B.
Right.
Plan B. We go Plan B, everybody. All right, let's take some questions. There are some easy questions to answer. Rachel has 3 of the girls. The daughter, formerly known as Madison, who is 19, or is she 20 yet?
20. She's 20.
She's 20. She is in college. She's been impacted by this greatly. She follows along here. You'll never find her. Maybe we get to bring her on with her voice at some point because she went on the podcast. But she's got a man in her life, and she's on a healthy path right now. But she stayed by your side, and she had incredible anxiety. She went through the ringer with Rachel, right?
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
So
This has far-reaching effects beyond what we see today. I mean, it's something that she's probably going to have to
Yeah.
work through for years. I can only imagine.
The other girls, Mark, I mean, they're in Rachel's camp, and I know you can't really discuss this, and I don't want you to because of the restraint. I don't even want you communicating to them here.
I don't.
And you got to wonder at some point, will they realize what their mother is? I mean, this podcast is everywhere, and I've made a very big deal. If you're a parent, I know there are a number of people here from San Luis Obispo. If you're a parent of kids that are in the schools up there, you tell your kids to mind their business and not to talk. I've said this, and I continue to say it. Leave their kids alone. They're innocent in this. Rachel has the 3 minor children in a home with Russ. That's where they are. Let me run through some questions for you, Mark. Zombie Girl, who works for the Bureau, has seen the worst of the worst. She's seen awful things. She's been a follower from the beginning. Poor Mark is still wearing an ankle bracelet, an ankle monitor. And that's got to get lifted. That's got to get done. That's got to get done.
That's about the most ridiculous thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah. Crazy. Based on the acid attack, based on the text messages, based on the other nonsense that she created. So What sounds like the making of a movie. I do want to tell you this for those of you that are just joining right now. I got a little bit of exciting news today. And, this has been a he said, she said story as far as me telling my story. And I've made it clear that, in a way I want to be done telling the Rachel cancer scam story. And I want to spend as much time as I can advocating for Mark and advocating for the daughter formerly known as Madison. And, Sherry, right, Rachel's sister, and your brother and your mother, and people that were impacted by Rachel. The tentacles that this thing has, it's so far-reaching. Did I tell you the story about Sherry in the salon a month ago?
Sherry told me.
Okay. So for those of you that are listening that haven't heard the story, Rachel's sister Sherry, who she killed off, on the podcast, you heard about it in episode 2 in the car crash. Well, Sherry's still very much alive, and she was getting her hair done, getting her nails done, and the girls in the salon in Houston were talking about Netflix shows that were podcasts, Dirty John and other shows, and she's listening to this. No, this is not a Netflix series, not yet, but they're talking about this podcast, and Sherry said, "I'm the dead sister." She had to go through our text messages and say, Harry and I, we text. He sends me videos. If he's mentioning me in a video, he will send it to me first.
I talked to her one day, and I'm all, "That's cool. You're famous now, Sherry."
Not the way she wanted to be famous, and
Right.
not the way anybody wanted to be famous. The only one really who I'm so glad has achieved the fame that she wanted is Mark. This is your cue. The only one who has achieved fame at this point, and who will achieve more fame is
That would be Rachel herself.
Rachel herself. This is a shitty story for Mark and a shitty story for me. This is not how I wanted to achieve any level of notoriety ever. And I'm sharing my heartache and my heartbreak. And there are plenty of people that listen to my story. I will give you, Mark, I don't think I've shared this with you. I will give you my favorite review of my story from anybody. And Lena hates this because I keep it on my desk.
Lay it on me.
It's been on my desk since October. I was on the Drew Lane podcast in October in Detroit, and it's a great podcast, by the way, if you're not following him, the Drew Lane Show. And there were a bunch of people that commented on my appearance on that, and one guy named Don the Don 74 said, "Interesting interview, but Harry is a giant douche."
Oh.
I don't know why that entertains me. But I always use it when I'm about to say, listen, don't be afraid to give us a review, but try to be kind in your words. Mark, with that being said, I want to thank you for joining me tonight again.
No problem. My pleasure.
This is going to be episode 21 of the podcast. For those of you listening, when the podcast returns, you'll be able to say, I was in the studio audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have a lot of stuff still that I want to get to. I don't know if what your threshold is, if you're listening and you, number one, you have questions, but number two, if you want to see stuff, if you want to see